Hi, I'm your $2 Tuesday critic, and this is my first recording, so I'm a little bit nervous about today, but I promise if I continue on that they will get better. The reason I call them $2 Tuesdays is for two reasons. First reason is because I watch my movies on Tuesdays. Every Tuesday I go and watch a new movie at the theater. And then I'll come here and share my critique with you. And then the other reason I call it $2 Tuesday is, have you ever heard the old saying, a penny for your thoughts? Well, I'm charging $2 for my thoughts. But the good part is it's virtual $2, so it doesn't amount to anything. Alright, so today I'm critiquing the movie Divergent. I saw it today, and I have to say, as teen movies go, as action movies go, it was great. I enjoyed it so much. I didn't know actually what to think of it because, full disclosure here, I have never read any of the books, and a lot of people that I talked to before I saw the movie compared it to the Hunger Games movies. And me personally, I didn't like the Hunger Games movies. I only saw the one, and eventually I'll see the other two just because I have that type of personality. I have to see stuff all the way through. Anyway, but I only watched the one, and I didn't like the whole premise of kids killing kids for whatever reason. So I was concerned about watching the Divergent movie, but I talked to one of the girls I know, and she actually reads the books. She's read all of the Hunger Game books. She's read all of the Divergent books, so she knows them really well. And she told me this wasn't in the same premise, and to give it a try. So I did, and I really, really liked it. I liked the part where it was so futuristic, but like most futuristic movies that aren't based in space, it's on Earth, and Earth is almost desolate, and it's a whole new Earth. And one of the things, and so it looked really cool, and it looked realistic, you know. I mean, if we keep going the way we're going, that's probably how our planet is going to look. But I'm not going to get preachy on you. Anyway, so I like that part, and I actually like the part where it's almost like a aptitude test. Actually, I think somewhere in the movie they did say it's an aptitude test. And I remember taking those in school, where in high school you take an aptitude test and it tells you what your future career will be. And that's exactly what that is, except it's your life career, and you cannot deter from it once you choose it. And like in an aptitude test, you either take the career that's given to you based on your test results, or you choose your own way, just the same way as a regular aptitude test. So I thought that was pretty cool, and again, realistic. So there, it was really great. The action in the movie was excellent. I really liked that. I liked the fact that, you know, there were a lot of different characters, and they had a lot of different personalities. And even though there was the bad guy sort of thing going on, it didn't take away from the whole premise of the movie, which was about how the Divergents were the ones that were not conforming. Now, because I didn't read the books, what I took from it, or the main thing that I took from it, was that it was about conformity, and how the Divergents, no matter how much they wanted to conform, because they didn't want to stick out, and because they didn't want to be killed, they went ahead and tried to conform. But the Divergents, that's not in their criteria, that's not in their DNA. So no matter how much they wanted to, they couldn't. So it's a really great movie. I recommend it to anybody that likes action movies, anybody that likes the teen movies, you know, the teen summer movies, because it's like full of teenagers, and probably teenagers you've seen in other movies, and I really enjoyed it. I will say that it also didn't have, I don't remember any curse words, and it's pretty good. I would say even preteens could watch it, and parents shouldn't have a problem with it. I don't know, you know, parents were concerned, but it's a really good movie. It's like the Hunger Games, and it's not as much killing going on in this movie as there is in the Hunger Games. And it's not gratuitous violence either, which I hate in action movies. I mean, I'm a huge action movie fan, but when it comes to gratuitous violence. There's no reason for it, and it's just stuff blowing up and craziness. It just doesn't make any sense. I also like the fact that when there was violence in the movie, they made it realistic, whereas when a character had to possibly kill someone, they actually, or someone that they cared about and they knew, they actually showed the emotions of how that character would feel. And it was very realistic. There wasn't somebody going up to someone, shooting them, and then they kill their person, and then they're like, no! Like in some movies, and they're crying out to some unforeseen person to ask why or whatever, and it gets kind of ridiculous. But this was really realistic, and I really, really like that about it. So, for this Divergent, I would say yes. Now, the other thing that I'm going to do in my critiques is when I watch a new movie, I'm going to compare it to an old school movie if there's one that I can compare it to, and like a correlation of what it reminds me of. Now, take this for what you will, because this is how I feel. I correlated this movie to two movies. The first one was Private Benjamin. That starred Goldie Hawn, and that was in the early 80s, I want to say, or the late 70s. It was a movie about a woman that really didn't know what she wanted to do in life. She was getting bored with her own life, and she decided to join the army, which totally went against everything she had ever done in her life. Kind of like the main character, Treese. She didn't, she had been taught one way of living her whole entire life, and then she goes and she chooses something completely different from anything she's ever known. And maybe because she wants adventure, maybe because she wants to know what else is out there, maybe because she sees the people in her group, or the group that she is not in, and she sees the difference, and the difference looks good to her. So she chooses them, just like Private Benjamin does in the movie. Judy Benjamin, she does that in the movie. She decides to choose a path that she had never been on before. And, Private Benjamin is a comedy, not an action movie. So if you've never seen it, it's a really good comedy. Goldie Hawn is one of the funniest ladies out there as far as movies is concerned. I've never seen her stand up. I don't know if she even does stand up, but she's very funny in comedic movies, and she does an outstanding job. She has a great supporting cast, just like in Divergent. There was a great supporting cast of famous faces. And in the end, she finds her place, and she finds that her place is not one specific spot, that she can do many different things and still fit in, but she doesn't have to fit into one place. But it takes a lot of craziness for her. Private Benjamin, that's what I get from it, where she's trying to find a place where she belongs, just like Treese is. And in the end, Treese finds out she doesn't belong in one place, just like the Divergents don't. And Judy Benjamin finds out she doesn't belong in one place. She is strong. She finds out she's a lot stronger than she ever realized, just like Treese does. So that's my one comparison. The other comparison is the movie Rambo. And I know you're like, what? And not the last Rambo, actually the very, very first Rambo. Rambo the original. And that, of course, that stars Sylvester Stallone. And let me tell you, because you're like, how can those two compare? It goes into the fact of conformity again, the premise of conformity, where Rambo comes back from Vietnam and he goes into this small town, and all he wants to do is not necessarily fit in, but I think he just wants to be invisible. And these guys from the town, they realize that he's a Vietnam soldier. And whether you, back in that time period, Vietnam soldiers were treated like scum. They're not treated like they're treated now. They were treated like scum. And so what ends up happening is Rambo is basically kicked out of the town because he doesn't conform to their way of doing. Just like in Divergent, where they want to kick out Treese's, any people that don't conform like the Divergents don't conform, they want to kick them out. So that's what they end up trying to do to Rambo, because they realize he doesn't conform to the way of life anymore because he's a soldier. And as that soldier, he did things that he was not necessarily proud of, and it changed him. Just like when Treese went through all the training that she went through, of course she was part of her training, but it definitely changed her. She wasn't the same person she was when she started. Just like Rambo was a different person. And even though he tried to, not necessarily, like I said, fit in, but he tried to be invisible, Treese kind of like, she knew she didn't fit in, and I don't think she wanted to fit in, but she didn't want anybody else to know that she didn't fit in. She knew she was a Divergent, but she didn't want anybody else to know because she knew it would mean death. Just like Rambo. He didn't want people to know who he was or where he came from because he knew that they would treat him badly. He didn't necessarily know that they were going to try and kill him, which they did try and kill him in the end. And there was no love interest, just like in Private Benjamin, in Rambo, there was no love interest, unlike Divergent. But unlike Judy Benjamin's character, who really didn't have someone that had her back, she just had people that were in her life as she went through and changed. Rambo had his colonel that was his initial trainer, and he was the only one that understood what Rambo was feeling, and he was the only one that could bring Rambo down once they, popped the grenade and Rambo became this killing machine in this little town when all he wanted to do was just be himself, and they didn't get that. And so it was cool. So those are my two correlations. And like I said, you may not get it, and that's cool. And if you don't, send me a message. Let me know what you think. I know people compare the Hunger Games and Divergent together, but honestly, the only thing that I think those two movies have in common is the futuristic. Well, they have a few things in common. They have the futuristic thing, where they have the have and the have-nots. But in Divergent, there are no really have-nots. There are people in charge of different areas, and it's supposed to be a checks and balances. It's one group that decides that they no longer want to be part of that checks and balances. They want to be in charge of everyone. That messes that up. Where in the Hunger Games, there was basically haves and have-nots. And then there was no unnecessary killing in Divergent, or killing of, people, unless, again, there was a reason behind it, not necessarily a good reason, even though in the Hunger Games, Kat didn't necessarily want to kill anybody, or Katniss, I should say, didn't want to kill anybody, but she knew she had to in order to survive. So, I saw the correlations that they made between the movies, but I think my correlations are better. You tell me what you think. Alright, well, thank you. I am the Tuesday $2 critic. I hope you like this, and I hope you'll come back and watch some of my other critiques for other movies. Thank you.